Hi, this is Drew Jones of Drewsguitarshop in Seattle, Washington, and today I wanted to do a little video about this guild. This is going to be a little different than some of my other instrument videos. Usually when I do an instrument video and I'm showing off a single guitar, it's an instrument that I've got up for sale. It's like a little commercial that I'm doing for it so that I can put a little YouTube thing on the Reverb page or on the Craigslist ad. In this case though, I'm actually doing a video about a customer guitar that came in. This is a rare thing for me to do. I don't like to usually show off guitars that have come in, but in this case I wanted to make an exception because I wanted to talk about this guitar, the journey it's on, my part in that journey, and also just why it is that somebody might want to put a lot of money into something like this. So this is an old 70s guild. It's got a lot of years on it, and if you pick this up and you look around on it, you can see chips in the finish around the binding. You can see little nicks in the back where people's belts have gotten at it. You can see little pock marks from buttons on jackets and whatnot, and when you turn it over you can see these little scars into the finish where there's been a pick going in, even a little bit of wood chunked away in the soundboard, and the layers of this celluloid pick guard kind of worn off. I remember having a friend of mine who was kind of more of a keyboard guy, and I remember showing him some guitar that looked similar to this. It had a similar amount of age and a similar amount of play in it. And I just remember him going, that thing just looks like garbage. It looks like it's looks like hell warmed over, man. And I was just like, no, this is personality. This is all stuff that you can't buy. You can't buy this kind of love that's been put into this instrument. You can't buy the hours and hours of mojo that were put into this instrument by somebody who sat down and played it and put in these pick marks and put in these little pock marks and all these things that make it very clear that this was somebody's primary guitar. They loved the hell out of it. They played the hell out of it, and it was important enough that it was brought in over the years for doing repair work. When this thing came in here, it was in need of a lot of stuff. It needed a neck reset, it needed a refret, it needed a lot of cracks repaired. The bridge was coming up on this thing and needed to be re-glued. It needed a new nut and saddle. I think that we even were looking at braces, because there were one or two of them that needed to be kind of touched up. But at the end of the day, with all of that work done, what we have is a guitar that has all of that love put into it. All of the little things that were part of this guitar's journey are on a guitar now that's going to be good for another several decades, because we went ahead and did all of that work to it. By the end of the day, the amount of money that the customer put down on this guitar is an amount of money that you could take to Guitar Center and you could buy a newer Martin, you could buy a new Gibson with. And they would be shiny. They would have all of the new features that you would have on any of those guitars that you bought, assuming that they've seen some evolution over the years. It would be a brand new instrument. And in a lot of cases, like with cars and with tools and with certain things, like getting brand new is always the best way to go, but not so much with guitars, because again, the kind of love that's been put into this, that's something that you can't buy. And I'm going to play a little bit on this thing so that you can actually hear it, because I think that the tone, the voice out of this guitar is just really gorgeous, and just really shows a really good example of why you might want to put a little bit of money into something, into an old thing like this. I'm not used to guilds having this much attack. I'm not used to guilds having this much headroom. Guilds are typically kind of overbuilt guitars. They're good for rock. They're good for kind of playing sweet things on, but they're not necessarily a power guitar. They're not what you want to grab in like a bluegrass band. They're not what you want to grab if you're like knocking out a whole bunch of acoustic Nirvana covers on the street corner. This is, but this thing has the headroom, has the volume, has the voice, and it's still got a little bit of that delicate honey warmth that comes from age and comes from being played. And with the neck reset, it's got nice low action too, which is good. If you're buying an old guitar, getting the neck reset done before you buy it, that's an excellent way to go, because you're usually going to need it. I can also tell you too that I'm not the first person to have done a neck reset on this guitar. When I got the neck off of this guitar, I was looking at the fretboard, and usually I have to pull the 15th fret and shoot some steam in there. And there were holes there from a previous time when this neck had been reset. And so it's cool that this guitar was loved enough that someone took it in for a procedure that expensive and have kept it going, have kept it alive. Probably, my guess is that with as much play as this has seen, these frets that I pulled out are probably not the original frets either. I think that what we're looking at here is a guitar that's seen a lot of good work over the years and has been kept going. Did a lot of deep cleaning on this. The refret went great. Neck reset went very, very smoothly. If the person who did the neck reset on this guitar years ago, it happens to be watching this video, I think you did a great job. It was very easy to get in there and undo that dovetail and get it out, which is a big deal. The new nut and saddle look awesome. The new bridge pins look awesome. The bridge went on no problem. Gills are kind of nice because they're pretty predictable when you work with them, and this was no exception. Even with as many things going on as it had, this thing actually went together pretty nicely. I'd say the most major complications that this had were all in kind of finish issues, like the seam strip down the back here had kind of started getting some water damage. And if you ever seen like a parquet floor in a bathroom, like where the toilet is leaked or something, and you see all of those bent little tiles of wood kind of coming up, that's what this looked like. And basically I had to go in there and kind of touch that up with a little bit of cyanoacrylate and a little bit of lacquer and some wet sanding and polishing, but it's like a mirror now. It's perfect. There were some cracks back here that also got touched up. Some cracks on the top that got touched up, mainly around the neck area, and it had the classic pick guard crack up here, which if you guys aren't familiar with the pick guard crack, that's something that older guitars oftentimes have, where the pick guard will shrink and it'll take the wood with it, and oftentimes that'll result in a little crack that comes right here. So we went in and fixed that. We fixed these guys, checked it out for any other cracks that it had going on, and we got this thing set up beautifully. It plays beautifully, it sounds beautiful, and I think if I was gonna kind of put a thesis in this video, if there's one takeaway I wanted anybody to have, it's that sometimes, even if you do have like the money laying around to go out and buy like a newer Martin, newer Gibson, or whatever guitar you think you might want, if you have the option of taking that money and putting it into something like this and saving it and keeping it going, the older guitar may actually treat you better. I think that there are several reasons for that. One of them is just that older guitars tend to be broken in. They tend to have a much sweeter tone than newer things that oftentimes can sound kind of tight and kind of bright sounding, more bright than perhaps you might like. Guitars are built under a little bit of tension, and a little bit of that tension is present in those newer guitars. It takes time for that to kind of relax. And older guitars tend to have already done that. And what I find personally, and I think I've said this in some other videos too, is that guitars that have had a lot of structural work done to them, so like cracks in the soundboard, braces re-glued, bridges that have come off, and things like that, my theory is that when those things happen, that they help release a little bit of that tension that's stored in the wood and help the guitar sound a lot better than it otherwise could. And so something like this that's got the years on it, that's had that damage done to it, that's You know, it may not be the prettiest guitar that you're going to pull out of the pile, but it's going to sound so much better than something that you could have picked up at Guitar Center for the amount of money that this repair cost. And so I'm greatly appreciative of this client of bringing this guitar in. It was a joy to work on. It's just absolutely cool as hell to me to save something like this. This is why I got into this work in the first place, was because I wanted to be able to take instruments like this and give them more life. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Very, very cool opportunity to get to work on this thing. Very glad that this arrived at my shop. And I'm glad that it's going out of the shop in great condition, and that it's going to have many more decades of playability, and going to bring joy to many more audiences and players, and continue making music. And I hope that I'm not the last neck reset or refret that this guitar sees too. I hope that down the road that somebody else has to undo my neck reset and, you know, give this thing another 20, 40 years. So something to think on. Not necessarily opposed to people going out and buying new instruments. I mean, there's definitely something nice about just going into Guitar Center and walking out of there with like a brand new Martin, just brand spanking new, all the shine and the finish and all of that stuff. But man, something really legit about having a guitar that's got some years on it. So this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. If you found this video entertaining, I've got lots more like it on my channel. Usually more like tips and tricks for players and luthiers. I also have a Ko-Fi where you can throw me a little bit of money if you want, and I've also got a Patreon where you can do the same thing by subscription for like $1 a month or something like that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this, and thanks.